Okay, good afternoon. First of all, I'm delighted so many people have stayed for the graveyard shift. I'm clear that the Eurostar leaves until nearly just after our talk. So thank you very much, because clearly this is the best session, the most important session. Okay. The next thing is I don't have any slides, and you'll understand why I don't have any slides. I think that what I want to do is just give a little bit of background. I won't drone on for too long, and then hand over to the people who are really going to tell you about the two groups and how we're working together and how we're going to combine our collective knowledge to make it better for patients with tuberculosis. But I think it is worth putting in perspective. We don't need a slide, because until 2012, when Janssen had approval on TB data, or early in this year, there's been no new TB drugs registered since the 1970s. So we don't even have submissions and blanks. There's a lot going on now, though. There are colleagues here from Otsuka who have a file pending at the EMA. And I think it's fair to say that we all are learning, and GSK, we're a bit behind. We don't have phase 2 products, but equally we're quite pleased about that in a way, because we're still learning about the best way to put our drugs into phase 2, and that's what this is all about. The other thing you'll notice when we introduce the panel is that we don't have a patient advocacy group within PREDICT-TB. We do have somebody on our scientific advisory board who brings the patient voice, but there is little patient voice in a disease of poverty, and that makes it particularly challenging for us, not only to do trials, but also to understand that the trials that we're doing are useful and we are actually doing things that patients actually want. The other thing that's worth saying is that with a global disease, there are a number of different issues that are highlighted in drug discovery and development. I think sustainable drug discovery and pharmaceutical companies in global health, and Kern will tell you the struggles that they had, even though they have a very successful product over the years. And I think there are a number of things that we need to do, and we need to be very ambitious when doing drug discovery in global health within pharmaceutical companies and within these PPPs. I think we need to be much more ambitious that what we're doing actually adds value to the whole company or groups of companies. So within PREDICT-TB, we have Janssen and we have Sanofi and GSK. We have interest from other big pharmaceutical companies in our success. But we must make sure that what we're doing is actually both spoken about, but also that we realize that we're actually really adding value to people doing stuff that has commercial value within the company. It's up to us to make sure that we get that message across. Because actually the life of an IMI project of 5 years compared to the life of a discovery unit at GSK, actually a discovery unit will last for a minimum of 3 years. Every 3 years they go for funding. So actually we need to sustain our discovery unit for 2 years before IMI is likely to deliver, for 2 cycles, before IMI even delivers on anything. That then means that we can then best put those products into the clinic. So the interaction between CPTR and IMI is absolutely critical, not only for patients with TB. It's critical for generating confidence within companies, within our internal stakeholders. I think it's not just necessary to have a CEO who's very, very ambitious about the global health portfolio of your company. The people that hold the purse strings, the people that actually deliver on the clinical trials from an operational perspective, need to understand that what they're doing will actually lead to medicines and lead to success within clinical trials and within then the regulatory process once you have your data. So I think that the transparency agenda that we've talked about today is very close to GSK's heart, and certainly something that the whole of industry is working on, improving at the moment. And I think that really fits with the way that IMI and CPTR work as both individual institutions and then as we try to work together. And I think it's very exciting that we now have a memorandum of understanding not only at the highest level between the two institutions, but actually between PREDICT-TB and CPTR. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our two main speakers, if you were. So Jerry Davis is my colleague in Predict TB from the University of Liverpool, and he's going to tell us about Predict TB. Deborah Hanna, who I'm really grateful and have worked very well with, trying to produce a set of questions that really stimulate the debate and hopefully will challenge our colleagues from both regulatory and CDISC to give you the flavour of the things that we're grappling with and the issues that we're having as we go into really what is an unknown territory. So Deborah is from Critical Path, and we'll talk about their work. And I've asked them again at coffee time to really try and tell you how we're going to work together. Not just we're keen to work together, but what are the nuts and bolts of how we will actually deliver on that. So Bron Kisler is from CDISC, and you've heard about the importance of data standards, and Bron will give us, has got a 5-minute slot after that to tell you about that, and as I say, we've challenged him with questions. On the phone, after great work from our colleagues in IT, we have our colleagues at the FDA, Ed Cox and Joe Turner. We're hoping that one or both of them will be able to interact with us, see there. And then I'm really delighted that Marco Cavalieri is going to talk in terms of the EMA perspective, and obviously we're building towards that. We've got the regulatory framework towards the FDA with CPTR, and you know, Predict TB is just beginning to drive towards that EMA interaction. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Jerry, and thanks very much for listening to me.